Yo, 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 what up? Mrs. Zoo Nation, aka Savage Armor June Giraffe, coming at you with another rant. Today in the Megacolony podcast, today's topic is: do people really understand the difference between premium and standard? Now, this is a weird topic and is going to have a lot of explanation, and I'll get to the reason why it needs so much explanation. So, I noticed a lot of people when they judge whatever card comes out for the card of the day, or Bushiroad does that thing like every Tuesday and Wednesday where they release a bunch of cards for like no apparent reason. I notice a lot of people talk about that, like when one card comes out and the card seems very good, a lot of people are like, okay, that card is trash. And I'm sitting here like, no, the card isn't really trash. I think you're looking at the card in the wrong way. And I've noticed that a lot of people has done that, especially for like the last few major reveals, like when they came out with Maelstrom and then they came out with like Blaster Dark. Those two cards in particular, I noticed that a lot of people were like, yeah, these cards are trash. Nobody really is going to be using these cards, and the clan is trash because of it. And I'm sitting here like, this is very good in standard, and I probably won't say that it's not super good in premium, but it's still worth using in premium for various examples. But the thing I necessarily don't like about this concept the most is that everybody's expecting the cards to come out to be super duper busted and whatnot. And, when the cards don't come out super duper busted and they have like all these limitations and whatnot, everybody just gets all pissed and stuff. And I'm sitting here like, why are you getting mad at this? Like, there's no reason to necessarily be mad. And honestly, after thinking about it, because when I noticed a lot of people were having this mindset, I was like, okay, you guys are fucking trash. And even the last video I did before this, I had like a whole 5-minute rant on trying to figure out why everybody's talking about that Maelstrom's a bad card when in reality he's a good card. And honestly, after I think about it, Bushiroad kind of fucked up a lot of people's mindset. Now, before I get into like what Blaster Dark does and what Maelstrom does and the reason why I think that a lot of people are stupid about it, let me explain why I think Bushiroad kind of fucked up everybody's mindset. In my personal opinion, and it probably happened even before this particular set, I feel like set 11 and beyond, Vanguard went through a major power creep. And the reason why I say it's set 11 and beyond is because I feel like the power creep never happened until set 11. Now, personally, I kind of think that the power creep started to happen during set 10. But I feel like the power creep started to happen in that particular way in set 11 because that's when the format majorly changed. Before it was like, okay, we're going to have like 3 particular decks. We're going to have like Gear Chronicle, Shadow Pout, no, not Shadow Pout. Okay, so Gear Chronicle, Grand Blue, and Royal Paladins. And in between that, we have like Lane Jokers, kind of, and a couple of other decks. Well, later on, like when set 9 came out, that's when Shadow Paladin started to come in, and it broke that triangular format that Bushiroad was doing for like the whole second half of 2016. Now, in my honest opinion, I feel like that when set 10 came out, it was still basically those 4 particular decks with nothing really changing that much. Because, yeah, after set 9, we had like what? The Tri 3 set, then we also had the, what was it? No, wait. After set, yeah. Okay, I am right. We had the Tri 3 set, and then we also had the Trinity Dragon set, and I think there was like one more that came out like right after. But if the thing I'm thinking that came out right after, I think I'm really thinking about the trial decks in my honest opinion. But anyway, we had the trial decks, then we had Try 3, then we had Trinity Dragon, and then, we had set 10. And it was like set 10, there wasn't really that much going on because, for one, the clans that got the support didn't really get like a super boost in it. And two, they were trying to balance out the amount of support that came in both, the Try 3 set because, Neo Nectars and Rogue Paladins got support in both of those sets in Try 3. So they were just trying to get like a couple of cards here and there to come out in this set. You also had Shadow Paladins that got like major support in set 9, and all of the support that came out in set 10 just further, supported it and whatnot. But at the same time, you also had like Murakumo, Tachikaze, you had Gold Paladins also get support, and I think there's like another clan that I'm missing, but I can't think of at the moment. You have like those particular clans get support, and they didn't really do nothing to affect the format. It was like, yeah, Tachikaze got like a couple of good cards here and there. Murakumo did as well. They got like a couple of good cards. They got a very decent Yasui. They got a very decent Yasui Stride. Gold Paladins has probably one of the best grade 3s in my honest opinion. I still like that Gugrit because he does so much for like no apparent reason. And we did get like a couple of good cards, and not to mention that surprisingly we had Garmore actually top of the Future. Oh, I remember now. Nova Grapplers did do something because the support that came out in that set was devastating for a while. I will admit, the new Victor and a couple of things that came out with it, along with like favorite champ and whatnot, that shit was stupid. Favorite champ was stupid in my honest opinion, and a couple of other stuff that came in that set was actually pretty good. And yeah, Novas did kind of survive for like a while because the support was like good enough. But in my honest opinion, they didn't do as good as like, oh yeah, Novas and not Novas, Shadow Paladins and all this other stuff. So when it came to set 11, that's when the format majorly changed because we had Kagero back in the meta set. We had Darky regulars coming in the meta. We kind of sort of had Nubatamas like going on and off a little bit. I'm not going to say Nubatamas completely was in the meta at this time, but they were kind of like in and out of it, so it's understandable. And this is when we started to notice that like a lot of clans that were normally not getting support, and the moment they got their support, they started becoming the meta for a while. And then like remember when they came out with like set 12, it was like OTT out of nowhere became meta. And for a long time, because of Ikamishima and whatnot, OTT was like top dog and shit like that. And this lasted for a long time because, it had Ikamishima, it also had, Battle Sisters as well. And honestly, it was doing a lot of damage. And then, Shadow Paladins and Gear Chronicles got further support. So, Gear Chronicles and Shadow Paladins basically stayed on top again. But then when we got to set 13, Kagero kind of like fell off slightly when set 12 came out. But then set 13 came out, and now we have like Aqua Force and Kagero back in the meta. And it was like, Aqua Force, I will admit, didn't survive as in the meta as long as like Kagero did. But at the same time, around that time, Aqua Force is doing hella good because they had the whole Resist Novice thing, and it was like almost the legitimate counter to Kagero in a way, but at the same time, I know I'm skipping a set. Oh, I am skipping a set. We did also have that Link Joker, clan booster as well. So, Link Joker even became in the meta. And then, when the Zoo booster came out, nothing really changed, to be honest. I know like a lot of people are going to say, well, Megacolony for like a short time was actually in the meta, and I was like, well, I really wouldn't say it was meta, but it was kind of doing stuff and it was kind of winning tournaments. And you could say, well, that is basically meta though, but it didn't, in my personal opinion, it didn't last long enough to be considered meta. And then like as much as I like the clan, it just didn't. But then we got like the Stargate booster, and despite that, the mission police, which in my honest opinion was like the weirdest thing, because I thought the mission police was actually going to become like meta, they actually didn't. It was actually Nova Grapplers and Lean Joker made its spotlight back again. But I feel like when it came to set 14, everything besides like Genesis became meta, and then like of course the Bermuda set came out and Bermudas became meta. And it's like, I feel like personally, ever since set 11 came out, everything that comes out right after it becomes meta of some sort if the support is good enough. And I say that because, like, again, Tachikaze and Murakumo got support once again in set 13, but they were never meta because despite that the cards they got were very good, I feel like that the format was too fast for them to actually use, set support. But at the same time, I feel like even though set 11 was like the thing where I said the power creep started, I feel like the power creep really shows its results when it comes to the Stargate set, when it comes to Divine Dragon Apocrypha, and when it comes to Divas Festival. Because I feel like that those three made a huge fucking impact on, the meta in general. Not just the meta, but the game in general. To quickly explain, you had Nova Grapplers, which rarely even saw like the meta spotlight this whole time in the G era. It was like the only time they saw meta spotlight was whenever they get support. It's like, okay, they get support, and then it's like 3 months later they're no longer like really meta relevant. But I feel like what they did with Nova Grapplers was they fixed basically every issue that Nova Grapplers had, such as hand and hand potential, and such as stuff getting popped like during their turn and whatnot, by giving everybody resist. And honestly, it became not only a GBA turbo deck, it also became a deck that was like that fiercely like whooped everybody's ass in like Stride Turn 1. It was like Stride Turn 1, if you weren't using a deck that had like a lot of hand advantage, you were either going to lose the match or you were only going to have like 2 or 1 cards left in hand. And that was a little bit understandable because, as the attacks go on, they hit harder. And the thing about Nova Grapplers hitting harder around that time was that you would get a damage trigger, and it almost feels like the damage trigger didn't matter. Especially if this was like second Stride turn, and like everybody just like boosts up out of nowhere, and your opponent's on that favorite champ. I'm like, this shit is stupid in my honest opinion. But anyway, you have then you have Link Joker, that obviously they had all 3 of their main sub-clans actually becoming the meta. Chaos Breaker was doing something because Deluge was a thing, and then you had Messiah doing something. Messiah wasn't as far in the meta as it should have been though, but like the support that they got made Messiah like a force to be reckoned with. And then of course you had the leaders, because the leaders is like a hella rush clan, and the leaders is like literally the only clan in the game that can possibly kill you before a Stride turn even starts. Then you had like Apocrypha come out when like Gear Chronicles had a card that can give you everybody an extra turn. Then you had New Atama finally coming up in the spotlight with Rene, that basically allowed you to like give like a critical to whatever unit gets dominant in 10k, and it forced cards in your hand to go into like the rear guard circle. So it was like the less cards you had in hand, the harder it was to guard that 10k, that 15k like plus crit thing. which is a little bit understandable. Then of course you have like dark irregulars like sneak right back up into like the meta because they had like Blam, or however the hell you say his name, where basically you can't use the great ones at all, and it gives twin drive, and it gives like a lot of people and it has like a way to like pop stuff on the field, so that's actually pretty understandable. Then of course, last but not least, you have like guard restrict, Bermuda Triangle, hitting 90k plus with criticals and stuff, with built-in crits and stuff like that. And Bermuda got hella ridiculous. It was like they had the hand advantage, they had the field advantage, they had ways to get around control decks, they had ways to get around. Basically, it was like Bermuda Triangle had a way to get around every single deck in the format, including bad matchups. And that was actually pretty bad in my honest opinion. And the weird thing is, when you think about all of that, it's like, yo, we had so much busted material to work with. I don't know. You can't really say nothing. So you get back to the support when it comes to like standard, and everything feels all slow and sluggish, and you're not really getting too many free stuff, and it basically gets up to a point to where everybody's like, okay, we're gonna hate this card because it's not free. And I'm sitting here like, but it's standard, but it's still a trash card. And I'm sitting here like, how the fuck is it a trash card? Like, a prime example, again, I'm gonna go back to like what I did in my last video when I was talking about Maelstrom. I was like, yo, how the fuck is Maelstrom a bad card when you get all of your shit back? It's like, yeah, your third or fourth attack rear guards have to hit in order for them to restand, but I mean, it's 10 times better than like Dragonic Overlord's dumbass, where, oh yeah, I have to hit the Vanguard, and then right after, well, I don't have to hit the Vanguard, I just have to hit anything, and then I have to ditch 2 cards and only get 1 drive check, whereas to like Maelstrom is like, okay, my rear guards have to hit you, and yeah, my rear guards have to hit you, and once they do, I get to ditch 2 cards, restand, and get 2 cards back. With Dragonic Overlord, you don't necessarily get 2 cards back unless you draw into a draw trigger. With Maelstrom, you get both your cards back, and you get a plus if you draw into a draw trigger. So, I mean, in my honest opinion, I'm still trying to figure out why the fuck everybody's talking about that, like, this is a trash-ass clan. I'm like, you need to shut your trash ass up. And then like Blaster Dark was like the more recent card that came out, where you ditch a card, and if your opponent doesn't have any rear guards while Blaster Dark is on the Vanguard circle, it gets a plus, it gives twin drive. And I'm sitting here like, that's a very good fucking effect, but everybody's like, no, this effect is trash. You have to ditch a card in order to get it, plus your opponent has to not have any cards. I'm sitting here like, okay, you mean to tell me in a format right now where not that many people really commit to board on their first turn? Think about this. If both of them at grade 1 and they get the first attack, they're not going to commit to board like that. Right now, nobody really has a decent grade 1 rush strategy to even consider like rushing the board. Second, you get you're going second. Well, actually, if you're technically going first, you basically have counterblast to use. Not to mention that if they only have 1 rear guard in the field, you get the condition anyway. And yeah, ditching that card is going to be a bitch, but at the same time, it's actually worth it because it's a twin drive. Think about this. Not to mention that your opponent probably has to possibly, PG the thing, because, that twin drive could become a double crit, and they have to take like 3 damage on their first turn. That shit's ridiculous. Not to mention, if they don't want you to get, the twin drive and whatnot, they have to overly commit the board, which is a bad thing because that is basically getting rid of their hand advantage, which goes in your favor because you're forcing your opponent to waste cards in hand just so you don't get the twin drive. How the fuck is that a bad card? Because you can't use it in the premium. Fuck off! Get that shit out of here. Talking about, oh, it's a bad card. How? Why? Because it's not, oh yeah, you know, I get a twin drive, you get the guard restrict and stuff like that, and I get a built-in crit because of it. You know, if when Blaster Dark was to have that, either two things would happen. Either everybody would complain and want the card to get hit or errata, or two, everybody just still gonna bitch about it. Is a bad card. I mean, everybody's gonna bitch about it for like no apparent reason. You know, I kind of like lost my train of thought on that. But anyway, that's besides the point. Alright, anyway, my point is, everybody has to realize what card is good in both standard and premium. Now, I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of cards that's not going to be very good in premium. There's not going to be a lot of cards that's going to be good in standard. That's just how the game goes. But at the same time, I feel like this also has to do with a lot of people not being used to different formats. And here's what I mean by that. You know, for a prime example, you know, another card game I play is Magic the Gathering. Now, I know a lot of people who play Vanguard but doesn't play Magic, or doesn't have the slightest of interest of Magic, or not even the slightest interest, that they don't even know like half the shit that goes in Magic the Gathering. Well, Magic the Gathering has like a bunch of formats. They have like proper format, they have modern, legacy, vintage, you know, commander, draw, and all this other stuff. And basically, the weird thing is when Wizards of the Coast come out with a new set for a new expansion, there's always like sections of how cards work. It's like, okay, we all know that a majority of these cards are going to be very good in standard. However, you also got to remember that there are some cards in the set that only is in there because of draft purposes. You have cards in there that are only in there because of commander purposes. You have cards that are in there that are only in there because of modern purposes. And that's kind of more the rare one, because whatever works in modern works in standard. So that's that's the weird thing about it, in my honest opinion. But, you know, to be fair, you know, Bushiroad isn't necessarily doing that with their game. They're just making everything standard worthy and hoping that a lot of the stuff that works in standard also works in, you know, premium as well. Which, surprisingly, a lot of the stuff that works in premium basically actually works, in my honest opinion, compared to like a lot of stuff that works in standard. You know, personally, I feel like there's certain cards that I would rather use in premium than not use in standard, and then vice versa, where I would use some cards in, you know, standard but not in premium. And that's understandable. That's basically how most games that has different formats work. And until people can realize this, and until people can realize and, you know, study like exactly what a card could do to its full potential, I feel like we're just going to have the same problem with a lot of people calling a card that's actually very good of a shitty ass card. And that's kind of unacceptable, in my honest opinion. With that being further said, that's the end of my rant. That's the end of the Megacolony podcast. What do you guys think? What do you think I should talk about next? Leave a comment. Push the like button. Leave a comment on the section and whatever. My name is Mrs. Zoo Nation, aka Savage Armor Jones Rafa. Signing out.